Hi, this is Shambhavi. Welcome to my weekly podcast about spirituality, love, death, devotion, and waking up while living in a messy world. The Satsang with Shambhavi podcast is recorded live each week with students of our nonprofit community, Jayakula. For more information and to find out about attending a satsang, visit jayakula.org. Thanks for listening. Much love to you, wherever and however you are.
I'm kind of going back and forth right now of realizing my capacity dealing with COVID. There's like feelings of being in the state of my practice and then vacillating to like, oh my God, the world is ending. And then going back to just a soft place.
The world is ending and everything is changing all the time by different means. So what we're experiencing is something that other people live with all the time, existential threats. It's just in general, a certain ilk of person here in the United States feels there or has some sort of conceptual material cushion against feeling existential threat. That's all it is. And understand that if we're being practitioners, we're just taking practical steps without hysteria, recognizing that everything that's happening is fine. It's all just nature accomplishing itself. Even the humans that have done things that might have exacerbated this are still aspects of nature, aspects of God, of wisdom. This is the attitude we should try to feel in our body's energy and mind. It is possible to be totally relaxed while this is happening. That is a possibility. It might not be a possibility for any particular individual person. I'm not saying you should feel this and you shouldn't feel that. I'm just saying that knowing as practitioners that it is a possibility that we feel totally relaxed in this circumstance without drama and just with open-heartedness and practicality. Have that be your beacon. It is possible. So we should try to use our practice to feel that as much as we can, to feel living presence, recognizing that everything's fine. Everything literally is fine. There's nothing wrong. Even if the whole planet winked out of existence tomorrow, that would be nothing wrong. Our astronomers, when they see distant stars, sometimes you'll hear or read in a science report, oh, that light is coming from 1 billion years ago. That star probably is dead now. And we all go, ooh. One thing that happens in life in general with little crises in our personal lives, and even more so when we feel more justified when there's a huge thing happening globally like this, we use these kinds of events to distract ourselves, just like we would use a TV show or something else, a relationship. Now this seems extremely justified to distract ourselves from our practice, to distract ourselves from living presence, to distract ourselves from being relaxed. We feel justified in our drama. It fills a hole where we think we need to stuff it in with some sense of urgency and meaning and importance. Some of us feel very officious, moving around at top speed, having all sorts of opinions about everything, being urgent, being hysterical. Many of us feel very justified in responding that way. And of course, if we have no distance on our samskaras, if we don't have any practice and we weren't born with some kind of wisdom like that, then fine. But if we're being practitioners, we're not giving ourselves this out, even if it's a global crisis. In fact, I would say that this is a better time, even than just small personal crises, to just really get it, that there is nothing out of bounds happening here. And we do our best on a relative sense to take care of people, take care of ourselves. But we can feel the absolute in our body, energy, and mind. We can relax. We can feel that. We can feel that there's kindness everywhere, even though in the relative experience it doesn't seem like that. We can feel there's wisdom everywhere. We can get back in touch with that. That's what we should be doing instead of giving ourselves a lot of outs. I'll just take a break from that and enjoy my fixations now. Enjoy feeling important and having contested opinions about things. This is a really beautiful time to just relax very, very deeply and work with whatever's in front of you to care for things. You don't have to get so big about it. You don't have to be the important savior one. Any sense of self-importance that we derive from events like this is just an obstacle. Any sort of performance of caring that doesn't actually result in open-heartedness and relaxation, but just becomes us steaming around caring about stuff, hoarding stuff, acting like that's fine. Some people aren't acting because they have no sense of it being an act. But when we're practitioners, we should, especially after having practiced, many of us, for so many years, we should try to recognize the fruits of the practice now. It might be the time to really dig into whatever experience you have of eternity, if you have that experience. The only way to be really open-hearted is to relax. Open-heartedness that is happening in the midst of tension usually is taking a lot of that energy for self-protection, ego bolstering. So literally, people get afraid that this is spiritual bypassing, that I should relax, or that nothing's really wrong, or all this stuff. What you're missing when you go there is that relaxing actually causes more compassion, more ways of being skillful from the heart, not fewer ways. Mm-hmm. Just being urgent and dramatic does not mean that you're being effective.
More about what the experience of eternity is.
So when we do sadhana, we do mantra, we do meditation, we do kriya yoga, whatever we're doing, kirtan, if we do it consistently over a long period of time, or even maybe over a short period of time, at some point we start to have an experience of the subtleization of our senses. Our perceptions become more subtle. And so then what we call matter also becomes more subtle to us. We start to notice that our own bodies have more subtlety in its expression than we thought. It's not just muscles and bones and blood and fat. We begin to have an experience that we have an energy body. And when we start to have that experience, some kind of more subtle energetic experience, then we have the possibility to experience this continuity between ourselves and other people. This sense that there's like sort of an energy zone over here and it's connected to things. It's not separate. And when we start to have that experience of lack of separation, then we start to think, wow, the world really isn't what I thought it was. And then we have an experience of the equality of all phenomena, some glimpse into that everything that's arising is made of the same subtle awareness and energy. And at that point, we can kind of have a freak out because all the concepts that we had about everything, we realize they don't really apply other than in a very relative sense. And that's called shunya, when we have that experience of the emptiness or the relative lack of substantiality of both the physical world and our ideas about it. And then beyond that, a deepening in those kinds of experiences, we get in touch with wisdom. So remember, there's 3 expressions of manifestation: physical experience, energetic experience, and wisdom. And we get in touch with, there's not just a feeling of energy here. There's actually awareness, aliveness. Everything has intelligence, not just some energetic experience. We get in touch with the compassion that's everywhere. We get in touch with the feeling of kindness and benevolence everywhere. We get in touch with the clarity that's everywhere, that's in the air, that's in our bodies, that's in our minds, that's everywhere. And at that point, we begin to become immersed in what Ma called the supreme moment, which means what is outside of our experience of linear time. So we go from the sort of evacuation of our old concepts about reality and our experience of solidity. We move through that relative experience of emptiness into this experience that everything is full of wisdom. And when that happens, or even when we get a glimpse of that, it doesn't have to be some, continuous experience, but even when we get a glimpse of it, we can't doubt away that's incontrovertible, then we are in touch with the eternal, in touch with the fact that our experience of being in these bodies and arising and going away is really not that important. We're not as attached to being in this particular body or this particular life as we used to be. And we have a feeling of relaxation, like it's okay. It's okay if stuff comes and goes. And when we feel like it's okay that stuff comes and goes, then we can really begin to enjoy impermanence rather than fearing it. We can just appreciate it for what it is rather than what we thought it was before and what we were clinging to. Because once we start to put our toe in the ocean of eternity, our level of anxiety and worry just goes way down. We still don't know what's going to happen, but that becomes more interesting than fearful. And we realize that even if this form dissolves back into that ocean of eternity, nothing has really died. Everything is still there in its total fullness and completeness. So Ma called this the supreme moment, and she talked about it in many different ways. She said all you have to do is recognize the supreme moment and hold on to it. She also said something that's very related, which is if you realize that nothing ever happens, you are very lucky. So this idea that nothing ever happens is related to eternity also. That yes, things are arising and subsiding, but nothing has actually been created or destroyed in the way that we think it has. Nothing has independent existence. Of course, this is one of the great teachings of Buddha also, that everything is dependently originated. Some Buddhist traditions, at least the ones we mostly come in contact with in the United States, they don't give the absolute teachings right away. So there's this kind of mournfulness about impermanence. But when you get into Buddhist teachings, the more complete teachings, they also teach exactly the same thing, that emptiness is a relative experience and that everything is full of wisdom. Wisdom is the ultimate teaching in all the Buddhist traditions I've had any even passing familiarity with. So we discover this in a very embodied way. And again, if you have any contact with what I'm talking about, then you can try to discover that for yourself. You can try to make your way back into that experience. Just when you're sitting in front of your altar or anytime, you can try to find your way back into that. And it's good to do that, especially when we're in times of crisis, and remind ourselves how things really are. This is the shunya part where you realize that you don't actually exist. So while we're here as practitioners, our job is to be more in touch as much as we can, given the state of our practice, with how things actually are, so that we can suffer less and feel more with nuance, with delicacy, with some sort of subtlety, with some sort of sense of a dance and artistry, rather than these heavy suffering emotions that we cling to make ourselves feel important and meaningful and significant. One of the bitter medicines, as Swami Lakshmanji puts it, of being on this kind of path is we have to really grok that we are not significant and there is nothing of any significance happening here. It is all beauty. It is all love. It is all wisdom, but it isn't significant. It's just joyous and experientially the most subtle thing, the most layered thing, the most textured thing, the most fascinating thing, magical and fascinating, but without any significance other than that. So we're kind of trading our suffering for that banquet.